Alright here folks, so this is Nate, welcome to my channel, and today once again a bit of a different video. It seems like I said almost every video I put up, but here we are. As you probably could have guessed from the title, this is my wife's first trail ride, and I've sped it up quite a bit. It's not super exciting because she hasn't really ridden motorcycles a whole lot. Um, this is just something I was really stoked that she decided to get herself into. And I figured I would take the time while this is playing. I'm going to narrate it to a certain extent, but also talk about why it is really exciting for me that my wife is getting into this, not just as a thing that we can share. I don't expect her to be out going riding the same places I do. You have to be a bit of a masochist to want to go try to throw yourself up a rock ledge or bump yourself through a beaver pond or whatever other painful things I'm doing. But how important for motorcycling and dirt riding in general it really is to get women involved in this period. um oh, we're slowing down. Oh, should have been a dump here. We'll get to that in a second, but because as I'm sure we can all agree, it is a very male dominated space as far as who you see out there riding and doing things and who you think about as far as riders. I'd have a hard time naming more than two or three, women riders. Oh, there goes the wife. Pick that back up in a second. But this is one of the things I was kind of worried about for her, just because she's had a hard time picking bikes up in the past because she's not very big.
You got a wife?
There she goes.
Good job, you picked it up. Good work
With the falling?
with picking it back up.
Yeah, I wish I could have done it a little.
There you go. There you go. Okay. Now, as we're coming up through here, as counterintuitive as it is, just carry a little bit more speed like you were through the nicer parts. But anytime there's anything in the road, like a bump or a rock or a rut, just sort of stand up and just kind of let the bike do its thing and just sort of ease it in and just keep on giving a little bit of throttle. It'll chug through and balance itself.
Yeah, and I was honestly really proud of her in that moment because out here she is definitely outside of her comfort zone, and I was kind of expecting her to get discouraged after having dropped it there when she's pulling over to let that truck go by, and she didn't. She just picked it up and kept on going. And now my advice to her at that point wasn't super clear, but when I think about all the little things that I do that have made a big difference in my riding, as far as being the balls of my feet, squeezing my knees, but let the bike move, elbows out, attack position, yada yada. There's so many things you have to try to condense into a sentence as far as how to try to make this easier for someone without being overwhelming. But we're working on it. But no, I was really stoked. Where's that? Yes, women in riding. There's not many, and that makes it for, in a lot of cases, when you're dealing with dirt bikes, to a lot of the non-riding public, a bunch of dudes on dirt bikes. It's there's this definite perception of a bunch of hooligans out there tearing stuff up. Wonder how many cans of Monster that dude's shotgun today. And even when you're bringing your kids into it, that sort of stereotype will still apply to a certain extent. But I'm not even going to get into sexism and cultural norms, but you have some women involved in this, and all of a sudden it seems a little bit more legit. And sort of that it helps make so the public doesn't look down on it as much. So, I mean, hopefully with that, it continues to become more of an accepted thing, and we will hopefully gain more spaces to ride, which in Vermont, you're few and far between. And to me, like, it's really nice that, like, she's come to this point where she's willing to do this, because this has been like an 8-year journey to get to this. Now, talk a little bit about her history trying to get into this, as well as some of the obstacles that women in particular are going to face, trying to get into something like this. Actually, I'll start with that. Is as you could probably see in the video, my wife is not very tall. She is 5 feet even. And for road bikes, some of them have some fairly low seats, so that's not too big of a deal. But like road bikes also tend to be a little on the heavy side. How her riding journey sort of started out. A good friend of ours, they got into riding, and she had a little Rebel 250 and was ready to graduate from that bike. So, because in April at some point in time said she wanted to learn how to ride. And so Anna was excited about this. Said like, oh, I'll totally sell you guys my first bike super cheap. And like that straight up was like, for how cheap she sold it to me, it might as well have been a gift. So if you're watching this, Anna, thank you. You're part of what made this possible. But it was a little Rebel 250, which I thought it'd be perfect. The seat it's like knee height on me. It's so low. But it is more of a cruiser bike, so it's more... Oh, did I screw this up? Apparently I doubled up a chunk of the video, but that's okay. I'll keep on talking. Anyways, it was more of a cruiser style bike, and the ergonomics aren't really my kind of style. I mean, if they work for you, good for you. But at the same time, that fairly low seat height and a Rebel 250 is never going to scare you with power. It honestly is also a touch heavy, which kind of helps even that out some. And I think she was like out just practicing the yard, and she dumped it, and she had a hard time picking it up, and she honestly had a bit of a hard time balancing it. Yep. Can listen here. I screwed it up in my audio in the video where I was telling her to go on, stand up, stand up, stand up, yay! That's pretty important for a lot of this. But anyways, as far as like the ergonomics, just really didn't work for her. And she's told me she tried again sometime, but after dumping it, she was a little bit gun shy. And so like I spent probably, like the next 6 years, getting it out once in a while, getting it started, and tried to talk her riding it, and she wouldn't, and I was getting frustrated. Because, I mean, really, like, as humans, what are we prone to want to do? We want to do what's easiest to us, and, not get too far out of where we're comfortable, which, that was leaving a comfortable space into something that wasn't. And so there's a little bit of frustration on both of our parts. For me not wanting to do it, and for her, me kind of being a butthead about it. You'll get that. We're all human. But so I think I finally talked her into trying my little TTR, and she liked that way better. It didn't feel as heavy. Granted, it's not. The TTR is probably half the weight of that Rebel 250, and like, okay, this is way better, because I like riding on dirt better, because you have more excuses to, even if you're on a dual sport with a plate, you've got more of an excuse to ride places where you're avoiding people, which is awesome. So now came sort of the hunt for a bike that suited her a little bit better, and trying to get that Rebel sold. And I did succeed, and this is sort of, I'm not going to get into dollars and cents as far as like how everything all came out, but I bought the bike wicked cheap, and with the way the market was, I listed it for a decent chunk over Blue Book, just it came with a couple accessories, and looking at how the market was, and I managed to sell it for a little bit over Blue Book, which is good, and honestly the lady that bought it is happy with it, Because even though it was at this point a 14-year-old bike, it had all of 4,000 miles on it, which isn't anything. And it's done most of that just chilling out in the garage. I'd gone through and given it a service, so I was ready to sell, put a new battery in it. So it really is ready to go. So, sold that. So she had the money, and the bike she's on, this little TW200, popped up, which was kind of what I've been looking for, like either that or an XT250.
Boy.
Just because, if you've probably guessed, I like me some Yamahas. And those are both, fairly small bikes, easy bikes, friendly bikes. Seat height's fairly low. But, it still clearly goes out and does all this stuff. And, like, she found... Yep, she saved that one. I was a little worried for a second. But, so she found this, I went to look at it. It's 2015, so it's dude rode it for 2-3 years, and it's been parked for the past 4. When I checked it out, the thing was almost like new, apart from being a little bit dusty and having some old fuel in the tank. Of course, the battery is flat. I couldn't hear it run, so yeah, it seems like it's in really good shape, and I can't hear it run, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's a tiny bit of a gamble, but it's a pretty safe bet. So I told him to make him a offer. It was fairly close to his asking price, and sold. And lo and behold, I had it operating in no time. So really, this basically for just a bit of horse trading, this is the first success story I ever have, because my history has always pretty much ended up being buy high, sell low. I've been absolutely terrible on buying and selling things and coming out ahead. So this is a nice success story here.
Alright, this is where I worry about you.
As you can hear, I was a little bit worried about it for this part, because this is where it gets a little bit hairy, but I should have I honestly should have had a little bit more faith in her getting through here, especially on the TW. There's not much that will stop it. That's kind of the whole point of the bike. So, that's how we got here. After 8 years, after originally trying to make a bike work for her when I first bought her that little Honda from our friend as a wedding gift. So, here we are on something that she's out enjoying. And, hopefully next year she's going to have time to get in through her MSF course. Because coming out and, learning out here on the dirt is an entirely different animal than trying to ride on the street. Because, out here, what are you worried about? There's some muds, I can make sure the front end doesn't wash out. I don't dump it here, overbalance, or if I need to put a foot down, I can do that. On the road, as anyone else who's ridden on the road, you're usually just trying to not be murdered.
Oh, she's getting after it.
Not be murdered by the general motoring public. Yeah, so here we are, seen in some cases, and she's been working on letting the bike move under her. We sped it up again because there's a lot of this isn't super interesting, because she's understandably going kind of slow, and when I was first really getting into dirt riding, I was going kind of slow, because back during back when I was giving her advice after she dumped it the one time, there's so many little things you learn that makes just such a big difference. As far as body positioning and having faith in the bike taking care of itself, or you're coming down through this rocky section. If it's something you're not comfortable on, the bike is all moving and bouncing around underneath you, and the tail's walking around. And if it's not something you've gotten used to, it can be a little bit unnerving. So, honestly, the fact she's still here, she's still trucking along, it's doing great. I was honestly. Well, went out for this, I thought we were going to get to one of the technical parts, and she would just kind of get flustered and decide she's in over her head and kind of quit. I'd have to bring her back on my bike and have to hoof it back up there and ride her bike back. But no, man, she kept with it. And I said, this comes right back around to just getting women involved in this sport. It's really, I think it's what's going to help it make it so it continues to be a thing. So we'll continue to go out and enjoy this. Because like I said, we lose access to trails all the time, and I feel like that's gonna having women involved in this will help change that. Just because once again, not to get back into anything, I'm not trying to be sexist here, but that's sort of the perception is women are generally a bit more respectful of a lot of things. and are, I think the perception is going to be they're more likely to be respectful of the trails, which is great. And like I feel I'm pretty respectful, but it's, you know, it sometimes doesn't really matter what is or isn't so much as what people are perceiving. So yeah, the fact she's in this, I'm absolutely stoked. And so anyone who's watched and listened to me, you know, ramble incoherently for the past 15 minutes now, like, you know, thank you for listening. Like, and I really encourage you to get, you know, your, you know, wives, girlfriends, sisters, you know, daughters, whoever else involved in this, because, you know, I think it's great. And, you know, the other thing I can see what might, you know, dissuade women from getting into this is, you know, they're not the same kind of masochists that men seem to be. Like, you know, want to go out there and get all dirty and sweaty and break myself all the time and do all this hard stuff. That doesn't really seem like all that much fun on the outside, despite how much I seem to enjoy it. You know, there's something wrong with me. But, yeah.
Good work, wife. How'd you feel about it?
Good.
Good.